Vice Media is dead. Wall Street Journal reports Vice Media to sell itself as it files for bankruptcy. It's actually a lot worse than that. They're not really selling themselves. The company is being given away to its creditors because it can't pay them back. This is, quite honestly, the most epic and massive get woke, go broke we've ever seen. Perfectly exemplifying get woke, go broke in so many ways. Now, for most of you, you know, many of you maybe not, Vice Media was the darling of the digital media landscape. Once valued at $5.7 billion, it is now worth nothing. It is worth negative. Because not only is Vice worth less, they have debt and liabilities. The story is actually fairly crazy. Soros Fund and Fortress, among lender group that bid roughly $225 million for former digital media darling. Now, of course, I tweeted about this, and you get these leftists who are just desperate to defend Vice for stupid reasons, saying it's a $225 million deal, dude. It's not zero. No, it's a $225 million deal because these groups already loaned that money to the company and they can't pay it back. So they're going to assume full control over it. So sure, technically. But they're also going to be absorbing the liabilities of the company. Oh boy. We got a lot of updates on what this means for Vice and its staff and the culture war. But this is quite possibly, well, it's a warning sign to all of those. Get woke, go broke may not be law, but it is a tendency and it's real. And I'll give you the simple version before we start, which I want to break down after I read the news, how Vice fell. A lot of people say that without Gavin McInnes, one of the original founders, it was doomed. I'm not so sure, but maybe. I think with Gavin, Shane Smith, Soros Alvi, and then later Eddie Moretti, the company was skyrocketing. They were producing amazing content and everybody wanted to be a part of it. Gavin leaves. I don't know at what point Eddie Moretti came in, but Gavin McInnes leaves. He's bought out. And the company tries going a bit more mainstream over the next few years. It skyrocketed in value. The crazy thing is they were all rich. And now I'm assuming they're still rich. The company's effectively dead. And I don't see any way this company can be saved. It's just, well, it's been a zombie for years. But the simple version here is, I was there 10 years ago. Just about 10 years ago is when I started. And I feel like you had this great culturally relevant product that spoke to young people, to its rebellious nature, and for freedom and individuality and fearlessness. But they sold out to special interests who gutted the soul of the company. It's almost like this company was on the rise and powerful interests saw that Vice was going to dominate. So they decided to destroy it from within to then wear it like a skin suit. And the executives at Vice let it happen. And now it's worth nothing. Nothing. Here's the story from the Wall Street Journal. They report Vice Media said it has received a rescue offer and filed for bankruptcy protection. A dramatic turn for a digital news darling once promised to upend mainstream media. The bankruptcy filing marks the latest downfall of media upstarts that years ago commanded sky-high valuations, only to struggle to compete with the likes of Meta's platforms, Facebook and Alphabet's Google for ad dollars. Last month, BuzzFeed said it was closing BuzzFeed News after it continued to lose money. I love how BuzzFeed News tried to do this thing where it's like, donate to support our cause. Give us money. They're smart. Vice should have done the same thing. But Vice sold its soul, and it was never going to work. There's more. In its heyday, the hip, irreverent media company co-founded by Shane Smith attracted a bevy of investors, including 21st Century Fox and private equity firms. In 2017, it secured a $450 million investment from TPG, leading to a $5.7 billion valuation that made Vice the most valuable media company in the U.S. It's amazing, isn't it? But the company, which owns a production studio, creative agency, and digital publisher, Refinery29, struggled to mature into a major media force and didn't manage to live up to its evaluation. It started looking for a buyer willing to pay just a fraction of its earlier valuation and struggled to cover basic costs. Falling behind on bills from its vendors, it recently cut staff and shut down its Vice News Tonight broadcast. Apparently, in the past few months, they stopped paying their debts, which is why they're going into bankruptcy. On Monday, the company said a group of its creditors, including Soros Fund Management, Fortress Investment Group, and Monroe Capital, had agreed to buy Vice for about $225 million and take on significant liabilities. The agreement is subject to higher bids from other parties, it said, so it could go another way. Vice, which filed for Chapter 11 protection in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York, said its media brands would continue to produce content. This accelerated court-supervised sale process will strengthen the company and position Vice for long-term growth, Bruce Dixon and Josefa Lakhandwala, Vice's co-chief executive, said in a statement. I do want to point out, one of the things that I'm hearing, people are quite perturbed over at Vice because the people who destroyed the company are staying and protected. They gutted it. I just have to wonder what it's like to be Shane Smith, the guy who starts this company along with Soros and Gavin, who's leading the charge, who's running the company. Gavin gets booted, and then he hands over leadership positions to some of the stupidest people in the world and grinds this company into dirt. Now, look, I like Shane Smith. As far as I know, the interactions I've had with him, he was a really nice guy. He was a good guy, and he took care of those around him. But I gotta say, in my experience, the very brief interactions I've had with him, it does seem like he would surround himself with incompetence. He would give people who did not have the talent or ability leadership positions. At least that's what I saw. Now we're looking at these individuals who quite literally rammed the country straight into the ground, and they're staying? If you're filing for bankruptcy, you fire these people immediately. Jeez. To be fair, though, they've barely been on board that long. It was Nancy Dubik, whatever her name was, who was CEO up until, I think, February. So these guys coming in may have been desperately trying to save the company from what Nancy did. But hey, I gotta say, it is funny. Shane steps down as CEO. Nancy steps in, grinds the company into mud. Oof. The company said it received funding from the bidders to maintain operations. Vice said it expects the financing and cash generated from ongoing operations to fund its business during the sale process, which it anticipates to close in the next 2 to 3 months. Vice gained popularity, blah, 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 this we know. Started in the mid-90s as a Montreal-based punk magazine and ultimately set up shop in hipster Brooklyn. It built a popular digital video and TV operation targeting young consumers. Yeah, it was known for its stunts, such as sending Dennis Rodman to North Korea to meet with Kim Jong-un. About a decade ago, Vice became part of an elite circle of digital media companies that challenged established publishers. Mr. Smith, who ran the company as CEO for many years, more than once lobbed threats aimed at larger competitors, saying Vice would eat their lunch and was the only media company that truly understood millennials. At the time, Mr. Smith told the UK's Observer newspaper he wanted to be the next CNN and ESPN. And you know what happened? You know what I think? These people knew that he was a threat, and so they subverted him. This Nancy woman who came in as CEO, she oversaw the collapse of a multi-billion-dollar company into nothing. I don't know why Shane Smith gave up control to this woman, but I wonder if it was frustrating for him to watch that happen. I've long believed that Shane Smith is a genius. It's why I wanted to work for Vice. I had seen him give an interview on the Colbert Report. I've talked about it before. And here's this guy, and he was taking the world by storm. But how is it that he allowed this to happen? I honestly don't know. And maybe it was out of his control. I feel bad. I don't know what it must feel like to have built a company up over 25, 30 years into a multi-billion-dollar company, give up control to some woman who then grinds it to dirt. Dirt. I wonder. And they claim they understand millennials, but I really don't think so. I don't think they do. I think the culture war creates a very serious problem for any new company that's trying to emerge in the space, because you no longer have the mass appeal of the old networks because there's just too many options online, which means that Vice did have a tremendous opportunity being first in and best dressed, but he didn't get it. They say Vice's business has faced challenges for years. The company missed its 2017 revenue goal of $805 million by more than $100 million. The Wall Street Journal reported at the time when Vice fell short of its revenue goals, investors, including private equity firm TPG and TCV, Walt Disney Hearst, began more aggressively pushing for the company to turn a profit. Vice's digital business, once the main draw for eye-popping 8-figure advertising deals, found it harder to pitch itself in that central role as traffic had dropped. U.S. digital traffic holy crap, you guys. U.S. digital traffic in March, 20 million monthly unique visitors, was half of what it was in March 2019, according to digital media measurement company Comscore. Wow. I think the Timcast network is doing better than that. Yikes, man. I worked for this company. I told them I had a vision. I had a dream. And they said, yeah, I've been there, done that. I don't blame them. I mean, look, they're making way more money. They made nearly $1 billion in 2017. That wasn't good enough. We're nowhere near that. But I genuinely believe that if at this company, Vice, if they came to me and said, you are a young visionary, Tim, let's have you start working on technology, methodology, and business development, Vice would be the new CNN. But I don't blame them. I mean, it's their business. They're a lot older than me. They can do whatever they want. Now, here I am, a couple years in. I think we're 2 years into Timcast.com. 2 years. I think Timcast as a corporation has now been around for 3 or 4 years. And I've been doing this work personally for a long time. But I started the YouTube channel in 2017. So going on year 6 of being just an individual producer and 2 years of running a website. And we're already doing very, very well. Very well to the point where we're expanding. We set up a coffee company. We've got a coffee shop currently under construction. Apparently several people have found it and have started visiting it. We're building a social club. We've got a lot of stuff in the works. The coffee brand is selling like hotcakes, castbrew.com. I'm approaching this very differently to how many of these other people approached it. Vice viewed media as this singular entity, that they were going to make content, attract eyeballs, and sell ads. I realized this a while ago. That's unreliable. That if at any moment you lose access to that audience or they move on or something happens, your business ceases to function. You need culture. It's a culture war. And I realized this a long time ago. Winning a culture war and building a company in today's ecosystem means building up culture, talking to the audience and figuring out what people are willing to get behind, why they're willing to get behind it. And that means building a business isn't about, making coffee and selling it. It's not about making videos and getting people to watch them. It's about building culture all around. And so this is what we're doing in a bunch of different ways to create businesses that will be part of a company that's not just about making content and opining, but about producing culture. I don't think Vice realized that. And so I think Vice was chasing culture. That's why they got woke. They're going to say the stickiness of the eyeballs wasn't as strong as we thought and audience move on, said Mr. Kassan. I think it's wrong. I think what happened was that Vice got woke. I think that they started targeting insane content in desperation, creating an inconsistency with what the audience expected and what they were producing. The example that I've often given, and I love to give, and I'll give you now, Vice ran an article that said this horrifying app can show you women topless. And it was an AI app where if you took a picture of a woman, it would auto-generate an image of what she looks like with no shirt on. Using the shape of her body, it would then just create it. So it wasn't really her body, but it was the first foray that we saw in mainstream media into deepfake porn, which is, it's kind of creepy. The thing is, if Vice of 2013 saw this, they would have written this amazing app can show you any woman topless. Now you may say, whoa, that's crude and crass and offensive. I know Vice was intending to be. And that's what they had been for 2 decades, crude and crass. And people liked it. It's edgy, it's funny, and you don't take it too seriously. But then how did Vice go from being sex, drugs, and rock and roll into hall monitors? Does anybody have fun? Is it edgy or exciting or entertaining to march in lockstep with Walmart? But that's what they thought the money was. Gone. Here we go. Mashable sold off for $50 million, 1/5 of its value. BuzzFeed collapses. I think the big thing about this story is how, well, it was sold for actually less than zero. Soros and Fortress already lent it this money, or it is filing for bankruptcy, and it will be sold. We have a bunch of websites popping up explaining what you need to do. I love this one, vmgrestructuring.com. We're taking decisive steps to strengthen our financial position and achieve long-term growth. This is the most pathetic and sad thing. When was the last time you watched Vice? We've got a couple documentaries coming out. We're going through legal verification stuff with it right now. And I think they'll do fairly well. And I think we're going to stay within our means, and we're going to aim to produce content that builds culture and generates memberships and to a certain degree ad revenue. Ad revenue helps offset things. But I think about Vice News tonight and what they tried doing and why the shows failed, why the brand is crumbling. In 2013, they were smart enough to hire me. And Shane Smith, it's really hard to explain to people who are not smart. You know, when I said that it's basically being sold for zero, I get this guy and he's like, "You mean it was sold for 225? You're so dumb." It's like, wow. Trying to explain complexities to people who don't have the capabilities, it's not easy. The company already gave them the debt years ago. And so now they are going to claim that debt as the purchase, meaning no money exchange. I think it's $20 million for operations. So yeah, they don't get it. They're not smart enough. And this is where we are now. Vice did not understand. They go from people like me. And the point I was trying to make was that Shane Smith said at the Knight Foundation Awards, we weren't planning on doing news until Tim Pool came here. It took some convincing, but they finally agreed to hire me. I did some field reporting, gave them massive shattering live stream numbers. They were like, this is incredible. Let's launch Vice News. Let's do this. Let's get Tim Pool. Let's do more of it. And when I covered Ferguson for Vice News, it was the first time any non-Vice entity surpassed Vice in terms of viewership. At least that's what I was told. And they weren't smart enough to listen to me when I said I knew how to build this and how to grow this. And that's fine. Who am I? It's kind of sad, though, I think about it. I don't know what the deal is. You know, maybe in 30 years we'll be bankrupt. Maybe I'm still naive. Maybe Shane Smith is sitting on a pile of cash and he's laughing, saying, I got my exit. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe. From where I stand in my experience, what I see is a company that was smart enough to hire someone like me and and my friends and people around me, but that eventually started hiring these low quality yuppie hipster types with weak opinions who aren't smart enough to tell you what's actually going on in the world. They hired them to tell people what's going on in the world. And thus, the whole premise of the show was it's a garbage news show of garbage content. And we're hoping these deals persist. I go back to the early days of Vice. I don't know too much about it. You'll have to ask Gavin. But I know that Vice magazine was in venues and American Apparel and things like that. And with these deals, they said, like, we have 1 million magazines in circulation. That sounds fantastic, but you don't really know how many people are actually reading the magazine, do you? But it was smart. Because then you go to an advertiser and say, look, 1 million magazines in circulation. We're in every store here. We're in all these venues. Young people, this is where they go. And you're right there. You want to buy from us. And it works. You get into the digital world and you get placed on the front page of YouTube. You get millions of views. You say the same thing. But it never was really there. They did not capture people, inspire people, and build personalities. I think this may have been one of the biggest faults of Shane. He was adamant not to have large, prominent personalities because the brand must be bigger than everybody else. That's the general idea. And it's not completely wrong, but with Fox News, you have Tucker Carlson, you have Hannity. You have these prominent personalities that represent your brand that people can attach to and say, I like this person. Vice didn't want to go there. Even Shane Smith doesn't even have that many followers, despite the press rounds that he's done over the past 10 years. And thus, Vice has no brand. It's nothing. It was a hollow shell of amorphous youth, terminology and jargon. But I think about the shows they produced. They went from edgy, crass individuals to stodgy, uptight urban liberals. Boring, not interested. Not punk rock, not honest, not authentic. It was garbage. Seeing someone like Shane Smith in North Korea Seeing these individuals that they originally had hosting these shows from the original Vice show, it was authentic. That's what people liked. That's why it worked on YouTube. Authenticity. Then they bring in the most plastic, inauthentic personalities and become a garbage brand. Vice, they called it. But it wasn't Vice. It was plastic. It wasn't punk rock anymore. It's corporate. So how do you make an edgy brand corporate and expect to keep your audience? Sayonara, I suppose. It's sad. I do want to point out there are some funny things here. In this tweet from Max Tanney, a media reporter, he says Vice's email to staff regarding the company's decision to file for bankruptcy. Section 27 reads, "What happens to severance and or other separation benefits? It's the company's intention to make severance payments to impacted employees, but some are subject to bankruptcy court approval, which could impact timing and amount." Here's the funny thing. After the word severance in the sentence, the bold font becomes unbold, or whatever it's called. There's a font change, meaning it was edited. One person says, if that's a legit font change in the middle of number 27, I'd be concerned. They're saying everything's fine. You have nothing to worry about if you work for Vice. Your job is secure. Severance, on the other hand, we're not sure you'll get. We'll see. I love that one. What happens to severance and or other benefits? It's our intention to make the severance payments, but who knows? My prediction. They are going to fire a lot of people, sell off massive assets. I would not be surprised if Soros Fund Management, in an effort to recover the $225 million it lost, sells everything to recover its losses and runs Vice into a skeleton crew because it's worth something. After they sell off everything to recover their losses, maybe they'll sell it to turn a very, very, very small profit of a couple $1,000,000. From the biggest media company in the country to a trash blog that nobody watches. What a sad legacy. It's your warning. Get woke, go broke. We'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.